All right. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Visionary Living, the podcast, where I bring on guests and we talk about how living out of your vision for what you want to create in your life, the results that you want to create in your life, is powerful, and how people have overcome their circumstances and obstacles in life using their vision for their future as a motivating factor and inspiration. So I just wanted to introduce my very good friend here today. Okay, how do you say your name now?
Katarzyna Love.
Katarzyna Love. I like
Yes.
that. So introduce yourself to our guests.
So my name is Love for everybody else who can't say Katarzyna.
They could figure it out if they tried.
Yep. I'm here from Toronto. I'm spending a lot of time here in Florida. Last year, I took a break and just really experienced life in a different way. But that also set me back a little bit, and I started getting sick. So I started getting a little bit, just not feeling well, and started to become a problem. And in pursuit of getting healthy, I found this beautiful direction that I'm in right now, which is teaching and learning about self-cultivating, masturbation, and what kind of effects that has on the body, and why it's so important, and how, we can take our sexual healing and our sexuality into our own hands, and let's drop the taboos. Let's get really serious and really sex positive, because this is one thing, the orgasm is one way the body has of healing itself that is so incredible.
Awesome. Well, I think we have a very interesting topic for everyone
Yes.
today, to say the least. So as we get started, just go ahead and listen to our intro music real quick, and we'll get the show on the road. All right, and we're back from our intro. So Rick, or Rico from Puerto Rico, here as your host, and we're going to be talking about something very interesting. We're going to be talking about self-cultivating energy when it comes to orgasms and when it comes to masturbation. If I'm not mistaken, is that where we're going today?
That's where we're going. Absolutely.
Okay.
Why not start strong?
So my job through this episode is to make sure that we land all of our conversations back to visionary living and what it means to live out of your vision for your life. And then also just to make sure that we're landing leadership principles and distinctions, so that as people listen to this conversation, they can create tremendous value for themselves in terms of their own life and where this conversation lands for them, right? And it's actually a perfect segue, I'd say, too, because I do have my Successful Awareness workshop. So I am very passionate about this conversation along with you. And I'm interested to see where we could take this for our viewers. So why don't you get us started? Give us a little background. Why are you passionate about this? Where did you come from that actually had you step fully, wholeheartedly into such a taboo conversation?
Well, I think it honestly originated, if I'm going to be completely honest, from an inability to, I'm, I guess, one of those women who have been lucky enough to really have to work for in pursuit of orgasm. And I think a lot of it through my research has to do with the way I grew up, and just being told I'm bad and wrong for touching myself. Young girls start to touch themselves as early as 4 or 5. And, if you get that slap on the wrist saying you're bad and wrong when you're 15 and 16 and start to get interested, you have this predisposed idea that like what you're doing is wrong, and you're nervous about checking the door or whatever comes up. And a lot of women I speak to, like less than 50% of women masturbate or self-cultivate. And you know, it's my personal, but well, it's more than a personal belief. You know, a lot of research has gone into the fact that if you can't do it for yourself, it's going to be really difficult to ask somebody else to facilitate your orgasm.
That makes sense. And, you know, I've actually worked with a couple of people who helped support staff and coach for my Successful Awareness workshop. And one of the stories I heard that's pretty funny, but it's true, is, you know, like, you know, in the middle of masturbating, like thinking, oh, God's watching me right now. You know what I mean? So, you know, even when for people who were raised in a religious background and it's bad and wrong, you have this like ideology that there's this guy over your shoulder who can see everything and is watching you. And how embarrassing, you have no freedom in your own privacy almost.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely. Especially when you're younger and you're like living at home and all these things.
And that was a man too, a male. So I mean, it definitely, the conversation extends past women only. I think that all people,
absolutely,
as a whole, like our culture is, it's definitely a very taboo conversation. And for conversations that are that taboo, there's no growth. How can you develop? How can you grow? How can you come to new conclusions and develop new ideas in that domain of conversation if you never talk about it?
Absolutely. Life is about exploration. Like we don't come up with scientific breakthrough without exploring, creating a hypothesis, and, you know, figuring it out. I think too many people are like under this impression that they're going to start a sex life and it's going to be magical and it's going to be beautiful and things are just going to fall into place when they find the right one or something.
You know, what's interesting about that, I just want to piggyback off that, is, you know, a couple things. I mean, the first thing I talk about is if you have the belief that there's only one,
right,
then that's kind of like a scarcity conversation.
Absolutely.
And if you think that there is only one, then you'll always question if the person that you're with is
right
that one. Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Especially in 7 billion people, you know, you'll wreck your head over it. Secondly, I just wanted to speak into how like you know, that is that taboo, you know what I mean? How do we move forward? How do we, if we were raised through our childhood, even into our 20s, to think it's taboo, bad, wrong, let's just avoid it, not talk about it, not develop in that area. And then you finally, you know, get married. Now you've just endured 20 plus years of conditioning that said, don't explore intimacy. And now you get married.
Absolutely.
And you're supposed to know how to be intimate with your partner.
Absolutely.
I almost think it's contradictory. It's backwards in that there is limitation in relationship based on that.
Not only are you limited to like the experience itself, but there's a lot of research in this. A lot of research suggests that a few years into your relationship, if you're raised to believe that these things are bad and wrong, then your sex life is just going to dry up because a part of your programming comes back after you've achieved, you know, marriage and children. Like, my job is done. It's like, no, it's not a job. You know, it's not a job, and it's something that you get to cultivate together because it strengthens your relationship in beautiful ways, but it also really strengthens your body. You know, the orgasm is one of like the highest frequencies that we can cultivate internally, unless you know, you were a devout yogi and really meditate. Masturbation, orgasm is active meditation. And to drop into that theta state when you're having this beautiful orgasm, like,
so we hit theta states when we,
you absolutely could. I mean, that's not to say that it happens every time.
Okay.
Not every athlete who's really dedicated is going to hit theta state when he's in the zone. He or she are in the zone, but it does oftentimes happen, and you can totally bring it to that level if you're conscious enough, you know, to do that for yourself.
And so when you talk about cultivating, is that kind of like a tantra practice, or is that?
I'll tell you where I got that phrase from.
Okay.
So, and why, continuing the conversation as to why I went into this in the first place. I was starting to kind of go through this phase of like adrenal burnout, low blood pressure, low blood sugar, really low cortisol. And once that starts to happen, you know, kind of like venturing into some issues that like might
health issues
that doctors are like, okay, you might have to take steroids for the rest of your life. I'm like, that is not an option. Like, no thanks. And I was lucky enough to, you know, start talking to a healer who really kind of recognized that like my sexual energy is powerful. I'm empathetic in that way, and it was causing me a lot of harm. And what I got to do was masturbate to health. So he recommended I read a book called The Secret Pleasures of Menopause. And at the time I was like, honestly, at the time I was like, I kind of feel like I'm going through menopause. So this is a perfect book for me. Like, I don't know what's going on with my body. And, and I feel my body, and I know when it's going downhill, and I was still working out and doing all the right things. So it's really quite curious to me that I had gotten there. And not really having like a super active like masturbating life, because I had a partner, and it's like, who needs it?
Right.
That's
it's like you
kind
rely
of
on
being
your
satisfied.
partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think that's something that happens in life and relationships, is that you kind of like, well, I don't need to do that. I have somebody to do it for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. Like when you get into a relationship and it's like, oh, I no longer need to self-fulfill or to do it myself. And I've actually experienced that going into a relationship where it's like, okay, well, let go of that. I don't need that because now I got a partner, which is great. What do I need that for? So what would you say is the benefit of still practicing or being conscious to self-love?
Oh my God.
Versus your partner and having a partnership?
A plethora, other than the fact that you get to self-explore. All forms of pleasure release nitric oxide into your body, which is like the anti-aging, I don't know, miracle molecule.
Whatever, right.
So that alone, and it's like a hormone stabilizer. When you're doing it alone, when you're self-cultivating on your own, you're not focused on performance. There's no anxiety. It's all about yourself. It's about how you want to touch yourself. It's about what kind of experience do you want. It's your own personal fantasy that nobody can destroy on like based on what actions they're about to take, or like moves. You don't have to overthink anything.
There's no predicting what they're thinking.
Exactly.
No directing them to do something.
Exactly.
Okay,
and
I see that.
Also, when you do it consciously, so not necessarily with the end in mind, when you just do it to feel great, that's a whole different realm.
Versus trying to get to the orgasm or the finish, if
Absolutely.
you will. Okay, that's interesting.
A lot of the health like practices around masturbating aren't necessarily about the orgasm itself, because there's so much that happens in your body on the buildup that we get to experience, that oftentimes we're kind of in this day and age all about the orgasm.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely talk about in my workshop for successful awareness is, what are we making the end result? Or what are we making the focus, the focal point, the goal? What are we trying to achieve? And, I try and have people see a new perspective and shift their perspective from trying to achieve the orgasm to trying to achieve intimacy. And then as a result of intimacy, sex happens. You're right. And so, but the thing is, if we make the orgasm the result, if we're not on the direct path there, then we almost kind of get anxious and in our head and start to make stuff up. And one thing I talk about too is kind of like, what do we make up when it comes to sexuality? Like, it's all fair and game as long as everyone is consensual and everyone's on the same page or whatever's going on. You know what I mean? So yeah, those are very interesting topics that you bring up.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm pretty passionate about it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. I think that it's definitely controversial for people who are maybe scared to go to that conversation.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what I'm about. I want to stop. I want to stop the fear.
I think that there's a lot of disconnection between the masculine and feminine energy. And I think that has a lot to do with maybe that disconnection between our sexuality as well,
It could be. Also, there's a lot of people in this world who are really deeply disconnected with self. So, if you're the type of person who's gone through life and kind of actively disassociated from yourself because of past traumas or things like that, I believe masturbating is one of those ways that you get to reconnect with yourself. As myself being one of those people completely disassociated in ways that I didn't even recognize until this kind of like moment where I felt my whole body shaking, but my mind was clear. I'm like, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
like how do you, or little things like I've developed a really high pain tolerance. I'm like, how did I disassociate from my body so much so that I don't feel pain?
Wow.
So like, how do I reconnect that?
What do you think it was that drove you into disassociating with yourself?
It was my childhood, absolutely. With the pain thing, it was honestly, my mom was kind of a single mom of 3. We were always getting hurt. It just got to a point where like, how much time can you spend at the hospital? If I pretend it's not a problem, maybe we don't have to go. So that's where the pain disassociation came from. And after that, I think it was just, it was my way of protecting myself from myself. So to feel that disassociation, I just became numb, and sometimes numbness is better than pain.
I could see that. That's definitely something that a lot of people default to.
Yeah.
Like as opposed to feeling, let me just not feel anything at all. I think that's where a lot of addiction actually comes into play. And not just substance abuse, but also sexual addictions even.
Absolutely. So that's why, like, to reestablish this ability to feel. Well, like if you can't feel emotionally quite yet, like start to feel physically.
Like, so are you saying that there's an association between the emotional state and the physical state?
I think that there could be in this realm. Absolutely.
Okay, got it.
Because once you're tapping into yourself and your orgasm, or the way you react to things, the way you react to the touch of yourself on your body, I think that opens a door, and like you could take a step in to the feeling. But I mean, overall, you have to have a desire. You have to have a desire to open that up, to pursue that kind of growth. And then to like remain conscious and aware. Self-awareness is the key to all of this.
So like what modalities or what forms of practice would you recommend to start becoming self-aware in this domain?
I would definitely, pick up any great books like Pussy the Reclamation, or Sex for One by Betty Dodson. Betty Dodson like pioneered masturbation in the 60s. Did body sex workshops where
what fascinates me is how any topic, like there's a scientific like study that went deep into it back in the 70s or something like that. What I mean? There's always some kind of study that happened with anything. You could be like spitting and how much bacteria is in spit,
60s and 70s were some great times.
They were some great times.
We had a lot of time on their hands to explore a lot of different things.
No, dude, seriously, like every time that I hear about scientific experiments, it's always the 70s. It's always like, oh, in the 70s this happened, NASA did this, or X, Y, and Z did that. Like it was a time and age of discovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, where do we go? Do you think that maybe our culture is just, we got so many absolute belief systems in place now, like we know it all, or do you think we're still discovering?
I think we're definitely still discovering, and I think a lot of people come from a place of ego and feeling like they know it all. I definitely have been there. Absolutely. Just kind of not even interested in listening to what people have to say, because I know,
right?
Like I know.
Yeah, like it's like I know better. Period. I know the best.
Or I know for me, and that's all that matters. And but no, like we get to open up, and who cares if you can learn more.
Yeah, there you go. That's how
there's always more to learn, and like learning and knowledge is never going to hold you back.
Right.
So just learn, like read as much as you can. Oh my God, yes, is a platform that literally will take you down like the steps that you can do as a female to walk yourself through your own orgasm if it's not something that you've done before. And I will say that when you start and you're not a woman who self-cultivates or masturbates, the first week you're going to have that conversation. You touch yourself and you're like, this is bad and wrong. Who's going to walk in on me? This doesn't feel right. I don't know what I'm doing. And none of that stuff matters. And you do it every night for like 5 to 10 minutes to start, just to break through that conversation. Give it a week, the conversation will go away.
Like the internal coach that is preventing you from that experience, right?
Absolutely. And it's there because it's programmed.
What it brings me to is, and I speak about this in my successful awareness workshop as well, is kind of breaking the dichotomy of right and wrong. Right. So like, let's get rid of what's right and what's wrong. Because first of all, let's talk about what is right, and if we say what is right, then it means that there is a correctness or
Mm.
an almost like a perfect ideal that we can hit of what it means to be human, right?
Yeah.
And so like whatever's right or whatever is in the direction of I'm allowed to, and when I die I'll go to heaven, and
Right.
what
All that
all the
stuff.
different conversations that kind of walk around the righteousness, right? And when it comes to wrong, I mean, obviously there are things that we can all agree are unpleasant and that we wouldn't want other human beings to
Right.
experience because we wouldn't want that either.
Or unethical or not moral or
Right. But
no
that's all in the
morality.
conversation of right and wrong,
Right.
And I think that if we boil it down to, instead of a right and wrong conversation, but we boil it down to like, what do I want to create in this moment, either by myself, with my partner, or what
Yes.
have you? And what do I want to create? Do I want to create pain, misery,
Right.
and depression? Or do I want to create love, joy, pleasure,
Connection.
all of that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So coming from a place of what do I want to create with this person? What do I want to create as a human being? How do I want to identify myself? Am I an honorable person or a dishonorable person based on my actions? And it's got nothing to do with right or wrong. It's got to do with how I hold myself
Right.
in relationship to myself or to others. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. I think that everybody, that we all get to create a vision for our lives. For me, it's so simple yet pretty deep.
Mhm.
I just want to contribute to creating a world that is loving and connected.
And you mentioned vision, which brings me back to visionary living, like being able to simply stand in the end result that I'm going for, which is, I would say, intimacy in this
Yeah.
conversation, right? So I'm going for intimacy, and like let's get real with what is intimacy.
Right.
What are your thoughts on intimacy?
Intimacy for me is connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a different word of connection. You can connect on an energetic level with somebody. And that's what really makes you feel like you're a part of them,
Mm-hmm.
like like you are in a place of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Intimacy can be, simple things like quality time without the phone, and like
Mm-hmm.
really paying attention to your partner or to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just establishing a level of connection that is above the basics. Hi, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
You are this person to me because.
Mm-hmm. And I've actually heard two different analogies for intimacy that I thought were pretty cool. One was "into me you see,"
Oh yeah,
because
love that
it's a
one.
way of removing the veil
Hmm.
of mystery, of disassociation. It's almost like see me, see my ugly even, and I
Yes,
can trust that I can be myself wholeheartedly in this moment, and there's no judgment, right? You'll still
absolutely.
accept me for however I am, whether I'm ugly, whether I'm beautiful, whether I've done some dirty things in the past, or
Yeah,
what I like, what I don't like, right? And then the other one was in time, you see. So it's like a moment in time, because time is so brief in a lifetime, in a
right.
lifespan, right? And I think we take a lot of those moments for granted, thinking that we have a lot of time. But to spend any time
Yeah,
with a person, removing the veils of society, removing the expectations of what I need to do, how I need to look, or what I need to say to be accepted, and just saying what's real for me and authentic for me, whether or not you like it,
yeah,
and knowing that you'll accept me no matter what.
absolutely. I love both of those
Right?
kind of directions and visions.
Yeah.
Yeah, into me you see. That always reminds me of Avatar. Like I see you.
Yeah, I see you.
That was so profound when I heard it the first time. I'm like, wow, like
Mhm.
I see you. To
Mhm.
truly see somebody and be like, there is no amount of like ugly that you can show me that's going to change my opinion.
Mhm.
Like that's the connection we have.
Yeah, and I heard a really cool. I mean, I love hearing this story whenever I do, but I think it's a group in Australia. I want to say it's Australia, and there's like these groups of people, or like tribes of people, that when they encounter another tribesman from another tribe, they'll simply stand there and say, "I see you," and then the other
Wow.
will say, "I am here." And then they'll respond, "I see you," and then the other will respond, "I am
I'm
here."
here.
You know what I mean? And
Wow.
it's really just a way of acknowledging another human being on their own journey,
Yeah. Yeah.
in a nice way, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I think that it takes away the judgment. It's to say that I recognize that you have your journey, and wherever that took you, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Or it doesn't matter in the perspective that I don't get to judge you based on it.
Right.
That's exactly what needed to happen. It was perfect the way it happened because
Hmm.
it got you here
Hmm.
and it got you to be who you are right now.
So I just wanted to kind of maybe shift gears, and
Sure.
I wanted to maybe call forth from you a story where you lived out of your vision of the end result and overcame circumstances and maybe even overcame opportunities. So what I mean by that is, for example, let's say you wanted to create a job that was 60K a
Hmm.
year, and while you're in pursuit of this job, you happen to find a job that pays 45K,
Right.
and you're like, okay, that's close enough. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's definitely not the same as living out of your vision, saying,
Absolutely.
actually, I'm looking for 60K. Would you be willing to meet me there? Or, you know what, this is a great opportunity. I'm like trying to be,
Yeah, I
um,
actually have a great story.
okay,
Um, so I used to work in engineering,
okay.
and I quit the engineering world to pursue my dreams. And one wedding right before I was about to leave for 7 months in Central America, my dad sat me down and he said, "Who has money?"
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I will give you whatever you want, whatever sum you require, if only you let go of your dreams and start a business here."
Oh, wow.
And just I'm not even sure if he used the words, but be normal.
Oh, got it. But that's where you filtered it from.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
It
kind
was
of
like
like you wanted to do what? What was your vision?
I was honestly, I was so lost and confused. I'm like, whoever I am, I don't know, because I feel like my whole life was painted for me. I was born in Poland, raised in Canada, very Eastern European.
Mm-hmm.
It was, this is the way things were going to be. This is what you got to do. You finish school, you get a good job,
Mm-hmm.
you get married, you have children, buy a house, like, or
Very
not in that order, but
Americanized.
yeah. And I was like, I don't think any of that is really what I want. And at that point, like for me, I have just been up and down with
Mm-hmm.
different illnesses. I had a pulmonary embolism at 24,
Mm-hmm.
found something in my brain at like 25, 26. And I was like, well, why does this stuff keep happening to me? And like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and what am I going to sit at this engineering company? Like, I don't care if you pay me 160,000.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I, I'm not a desk person. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
field person. Like, I get to
Yeah,
work with people,
I
and
feel that.
that's just like not me. There's no amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
especially like being raised seeing what money has a potential to do if that's a direction you take.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no way. Like, I get to figure out who I am, like what I'm doing and
Well, I mean,
why.
that's very powerful though that you wanted to travel, right? It was
Yeah,
was your dream,
absolutely.
and your dad offered you any sum of
Any
money.
sum.
And I think that a lot of people in today's day and age knowing no limitation and money. And like that's kind of what I feel that we've been conditioned to actually go after as a goal or as an end result
Yeah,
is money.
yeah.
And it's not even happiness anymore. And
No.
I think honestly that a lot of our generation is kind of going that route of trying to
Just get as much money as they can so they
well
can retire, is what I keep hearing.
well, I think that was the generation right before us.
Okay.
I think that they still followed that path, that formula, if you will. But I think our generation is being more rebellious. Like
Oh
we're
yeah,
finding our
actually I do see
own,
that.
like where's the pleasure for me? What's in it for me? You know what I mean? And money is great, but that's not ultimately what lights me up
Yeah.
passionately, makes me happy, gives me purpose, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we need it for some like end goals, but it really doesn't cultivate
Mhm.
fulfillment.
Mhm.
Um, and I've had, I'm going to call it the massive fortune of being really poor. Like I grew
Mhm.
up really poor. And even though my dad did have this money, there was always a disconnect there. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't on the receiving end of
Mm.
that.
Got it.
So even like for him to put that out there, I'd be like, I'm not sure. Maybe a part of me didn't even believe it.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, well, and I'm grateful, if that was the case, if that
Mhm.
was why I decided not to take
Mhm.
that offer. But
And you ended up traveling?
yeah, I
Where'd you
traveled for
travel?
7 months. I did Central America, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Guatemala,
Forget money. I'll take the travel.
Mexico. Yeah, I think
Sounds awesome.
I've done 18 countries.
18. That's
Mhm.
awesome, man.
Yeah, always with the pursuit of like literally in Costa Rica, I lived out of my hammock on
Mm-hmm.
the like beaches of Costa Rica, just bouncing beach to beach, really getting to know people, like
Mm-hmm.
this lifestyle, pura vida, like why this pure life? Why this how is it so easy?
Right.
Why are these people so happy? I've always been drawn to almost like third world countries where the people are just so happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
Isn't it funny
why
how
is
when
that?
people have less, they almost access happier easier, and when people have more, it's
Yeah.
almost like an effort to get through to the other side of that.
I think it's I think it's a time scarcity conversation.
Hmm.
People who they have more time to spend with their families. They're not always like so driven for the bottom line and the dollar. I think
Mhm.
when you start to make money and you see that, like, oh, if I just pull 10 hours, I can make
Mhm.
X amount of dollars, and that's great.
Mhm.
You get pulled into that a
Mhm.
little bit too easy, and like I forget that I have this family and like and these friends who like just want to hang out. Even like with my travels, I
Mhm.
travel quite a bit. I have been since 2016,
Mhm.
and I forget sometimes that I have these awesome people at home, who would love to spend time with me,
Mhm.
and I keep just like running away in pursuit of the next thing. It's like money is my travel, or travel is my money.
Well, I think what you're speaking into really is our innate need for the instant gratification.
Right.
That, like, where's the quick fix, that quick high, that quick release. It
Mm,
kind of brings us right back to our conversation.
yeah.
How do I get that orgasm or the finish or the end result?
Yeah.
And instead of prioritizing what the actual connection itself as the
Yeah.
end result. So as long as you're connected either by self or by partner,
Yeah.
feeling that feeling.
Going back to that.
Mm,
So the goal really is to get connected with yourself. So none of these like 5-minute quick fixes. Like
mm-hmm.
that's not what I'm talking about when I say self cultivate. I mean
Although
set a timer.
sometimes that's a good thing, right?
Absolutely necessary. I totally get it. Sometimes they're necessary. It helps refocus a lot of great
Mhm,
other things. But like a 30-minute self cultivating session where like you really pay attention to yourself,
mhm,
set your space up, to be super either romantic or sensual, light some candles, like
mhm,
really set the space for yourself because, you know, this isn't just a reward for yourself. Like
mhm.
this is the like greatest form of self love. Why not make it like as great as it can be?
Because you mentioned something else, you said sensuality, and I know we spoke about intimacy, and we're also talking about
Hmm.
orgasms for sexuality, right? So one thing that I really wanted to kind of prioritize or refocus is the order of priorities that we put those three in. A lot of times I talk also in my workshop,
Hmm.
Successful Awareness, we talk about, like, there's three components that really create your experiences in life. The first is the doing, the mechanisms, like
Okay.
what was it that we're doing to then have what it is that we say we want in our lives. Then the second thing is, like, the way of being that we possess, or attitudes, or emotional body. So,
Right.
like, how are we doing those things? What ways of being are we bringing to that mechanism that we're choosing as a vehicle to achieve whatever it is that we're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And then lastly is the results that we're trying to create, right? Or
Absolutely.
what we have at the end of all of that. And so I think that, we try and, like I said earlier, try and put sex as the goal, as like what I'm supposed to do,
Right.
right, to then have at the end
Orgasm.
orgasm, or the feeling, or the
Yeah.
experiences of satisfaction, pleasure, and all of that.
Yeah.
But that if we were to recontextualize it, like, what if the way that you want to be with yourself, or the way that you want to be with your partner in terms of an emotional attitude or emotional being, is really like intimate, is revealing the veil, getting real and authentic and raw. And then the doing, the mechanism that we really want to focus on implementing, is sensuality. Like the focus in terms of what we want to do is pleasing the senses, stimulating the senses:
Absolutely.
sight, taste, sound,
Yeah.
feeling our skin, all of it. And then from that, as a result of those two being our focus, the result would be sexuality, or orgasm, or sex, or whatever it is that we're
I
trying to achieve.
agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And also through a lot of research, I recognize that I think that we as people can sum ourselves down to having 5 different types of erotic blueprints. So
Okay.
where some are very energetic, the connection focused and sensual based,
Mm-hmm.
others really are kinky
Mm-hmm.
based.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really what is required for them.
So why don't you go a little deeper into the five what?
There are 5 erotic blueprints.
Okay.
So very similar to 5 love languages. Your top 2 very like matter.
Mm-hmm.
They are kinky, shapeshifter, sensual, sexual, and energetic.
Okay, so please elaborate, because this is
Sure.
actually new for me, and I
Sure.
would love to learn this. This is awesome.
So, an energetic kind of erotic blueprint is really focused on the connection, on
Mm-hmm.
creating the space and the environment, and is energy based.
Mm-hmm.
So, an energetic person, for example, if you start to go straight to the genitals, you're just going to turn them off, and they
Mm-hmm.
won't be able to stimulate, because you don't stimulate their genitals, you stimulate their mind, you stimulate their soul,
Mm-hmm.
and then it arouses um,
The genitals.
the genitals,
Got it.
like indirectly.
Got it. As a result, a
Absolutely.
consequence of that.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
energetic is focused on
Really the energy
the
movement, the
energy,
connection, that
the connection.
intimacy.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
So like, you could find an energetic could probably make out for like an hour and a half and be super happy.
Mm-hmm.
Or like that's where like, people who really love to cuddle,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they're drawing in that connection, that like your essence. They feel like they're a part of you.
So all right. So far, I feel like I got energetic parts of me.
Yeah,
What's the next one?
absolutely. So sensual is really focused around the five senses.
Mm-hmm.
So these are people who really appreciate the candles, the lighting, the mood, the ambiance. All of that is going to
Mm-hmm.
take their experience to the next level.
Got it.
And without it, it actually takes away from the experience,
Got it.
right? Then you have kinky, which is, kinky. You had like your bondage, you have your blindfolds,
Mm-hmm.
you have,
Flogs.
a little bit of maybe pain equals pleasure,
Okay.
for a lot, for some. So that's pretty much what that is.
Okay. Cool.
That whole different side of it where it is physical.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual is genital or like oriented.
Got it.
So very
The
sexual
focus
people.
is going straight to the genitals.
Yeah, and not even just focus, but like that's the stimulating fact. Like
Mhm.
some people are super sexual that like you could just touch the genitals and they're
Mhm.
getting super aroused, and it's
Mhm.
very easy, and just to get to the finish.
Mm-hmm.
A shapeshifter would have all four,
Mm.
um, have a little bit of all four, and they come and go, not in any specific order. It's just
Right.
like today, for some reason, I feel
I feel
kinky.
kinky. Got it.
And like that doesn't mean I'm gonna feel kinky tomorrow, but in this moment,
Right.
like just accept that and let's run with it.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you identify yourself?
So I'm like 40% energetic.
Okay.
There's a quiz.
Oh, there's a quiz. Hey guys, there's a quiz in case anyone wants
Yes.
to take and find out.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm 40% energetic,
Okay.
25% shapeshifter, and 25% sensual, and then 5 and 5% kinky and sexual.
Okay.
Which, like, growing up, I thought I was super sexual.
Got it.
Actually, a lot of people think they're super sexual. If they have like a heightened sex drive, if I have a heightened sex drive,
Mm-hmm.
like you're automatically going to think that I'm sexual.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it has nothing to do with that. I'm just really in need or in desire for that connection.
So what kind of power do you think people could have if they were aware to their, what'd you call it?
Erotic blueprint.
Erotic blueprints.
I think that this is like a foundation, because working with people, I'm recognizing a lot of people really do think that they're sexual, and they'll go straight for the genitals, and they think that that's the way to go because like you get to stimulate this area, and that's how it's going to happen. And society kind of like shows us through porn and other things that like this is how you do it.
Well, I just want to pull that out because it's the first time we're bringing up the topic of pornography. One thing that I talk to people about in my workshop too is how do we utilize pornography?
Absolutely.
Like not to make porno bad and wrong on its own.
Absolutely.
But to say, are you using it A as a stimulus or B as a blueprint for how to interact and engage? Because if we're now using this as a guidebook towards how to engage, then we might be a little confused because ultimately at the end of 5 minutes, they're like, cut. All right, someone get her some water. Someone keep him prepped up.
Exactly.
So
right?
there is like a Hollywood almost like facade.
Yeah, there's an over exaggeration. That's like, where that went. And maybe, those people are very sexual and it only takes them 5 minutes. But for the rest of the world who isn't so lucky, like, how do we use that? And I mean,
I think it also gives us expectations on how to perform or like how long we need to go, how big we need to be, or
absolutely
all those expectations of like the minimum standards and structures. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have quite a few young clientele with performance anxiety, and where is that coming from? It's coming from a lot of the porn that they watch. Like, this is how I need to perform. This is like how fast it needs to be, and like I can't handle that, or I'm like, wow, you get to just take all of that off.
Just chill for a moment.
Yeah.
Well, we have one of our viewers asking if you read these 5 levels in a book, or if you're writing a book, or how did you learn about your 5
So,
blueprints?
I'm going to provide you with the website. There's a beautiful woman who hosts workshops, has a whole course. Oh, sorry
Mhm.
about that. Has a whole course around this,
Mhm.
I think in New York. So I'll provide you with those details. You know what? How I got it, I must have like clicked something someday, subscribed, and I was going through my emails one day and I
Mhm.
saw it. And I'm just like, what is this? And I had recognized that I've been getting these emails for like a year,
Mhm.
over a year. And it was just the right time for me to open up the email
Perfect
to be
timing.
like, what is this?
Yeah.
And ever since I got into it, it's even taking myself cultivating to a whole nother level,
Mhm.
because I recognize that like, hey, these are like life hacks, sexual life hacks
Mhm.
almost, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
And she does have a book out for each of the 5. Um, yeah, and it's incredible. And I make up that, you know, the work going into those particular things can continue to grow.
So maybe in the comments after we're done, we can put the name of the book or the
Absolutely.
artist and the website and all
I'll put
that.
the website and then the links, and
Beautiful.
yeah, the option to purchase the books will be
Awesome.
open after you completed the quiz.
Well, we're coming to the end of our podcast session together, unfortunately, because
It
it's
is
definitely
unfortunate.
very interesting conversation, and that time went by so quickly. So as we come to an end, I want you to be able to plug anything that you're doing, either as an entrepreneur or anything that you want our viewers to kind of be aware of in terms of what you're up to in life, what your vision is, and how they can support you. So, like, what you got going on?
Really, what my vision is just to open up this conversation and platform. And like, I'm not from here in Florida, but I'm absolutely really interested in everybody opening themselves up to this. And there are some beautiful practitioners here. um, Definitely take the course, take every and any course, educate yourself, because
Hmm.
that's what I'm about. I think that through
So, are you gonna take my
education,
course then? Is that what
I
you're
think
saying?
I think I get to take your
Yeah, I would
course.
love that. I would love to have someone as open and knowledgeable as you in this conversation to be in that workshop. A lot of people think that they have to be in a place of not having a good sex life or not being in a good
Yeah,
place to have, to take this course. But ultimately, like, no, we all come from different walks of life. And the more experienced will teach those who are less experienced,
exactly.
and those who are less experienced will seek knowledge from those who are more experienced. So how powerful it is to get just a variety of people in the room, period. There's no judgment as to whether your sex life is good or bad or whatever, right? It's simply get into a self-development state of mind. Like, what
Yeah,
can I learn? How can I grow? How can I better myself in any domain, but in particular your sexuality and your intimacy?
yeah, absolutely.
So I have my workshop intro next Saturday. So a week from 2 days ago. 5 days left.
That's July 6th.
July 6th. Yep.
So I am also I don't have the particulars quite ready yet. I'm
Mhm.
hoping to get about 15 women together for a body sex day,
Mhm.
exploring the female body, sexuality, masturbation, the erotic blueprints.
Mhm.
So I will post the information for that.
Okay. Do you have
Um,
an expected date in
yeah,
which
I'm
you're
thinking
looking?
it's either going to be the 6th or the 7th. So we'll
Okay.
see. So maybe, since I haven't set the date,
Right.
it might just have to be Sunday so I can attend on
Hey, yeah,
Saturday.
and then I could also support you and let people know from my workshop that you got what you got going
Yeah,
on.
absolutely. For me, yeah, it's really just about get educated, seek advice, seek support.
Mm.
There's some beautiful women doing some beautiful work here. Like there's a great number of like kind of sex work going on in like the Bodhi Center,
Mhm.
and Michelle Alva is a tantra practitioner that's helped
I've
me.
actually spoken to her. She's interested in appearing on my podcast. She might actually be on July 15th.
Awesome.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
Yeah, she was a
She's
pretty interesting
incredible.
person to talk to and when we
Yeah.
were setting up the schedule. So I can't wait to see where she goes with our conversations.
And she's just so knowledgeable. She has tons
Mhm.
of like actual degrees and stuff under her belt in
Mhm.
pursuit of this direction. So
Yeah,
I'm
when she told me how she got into it is a very interesting story, and I can't wait to share it with you all when I have the
yeah,
opportunity to Q&A her.
exactly. Yeah.
So aside from your workshop that you're thinking is going to be on the 7th.
I'm putting everything. in the coming months, I'm going to be launching some masterminds and some online coursework. As a Canadian, I get to, really create a passive income and teach people online. Um, I'm really in the preliminary stages. I just recognized that, this has been my dream
Mm-hmm.
for a really long time. And because of feeling like bad and wrong or not
Mm-hmm.
being able to really open up this conversation with family and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
I've prevented myself from actually going full tilt, and I'm ready to do that.
You're ready, right?
So
Yeah, because
the
the only way that
website's
you'll
going to
blow up
launch.
is if you go full
Exactly.
into it. Yeah.
I'm going to launch the website soon.
Okay.
Instagram, for me, it's really about getting information out there, getting people open to having the conversation. There's like no more taboo. I will
Mm-hmm.
talk about sex everywhere I go.
Mm-hmm.
And people always like kind of find it funny. It's like, oh, she just always talks about it. I'm just like, well, I don't know. There's just like every life situation.
I mean, when passion drives you, right?
Exactly.
So as you get more solid or solidified with your dates and your scheduling and what you're releasing, please let me know. Reach out to me.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to promote you and talk about you and what's going on.
Absolutely. I'm very
Um,
excited about it.
so yeah, as far as I'm concerned, next weekend, Saturday, I've got my workshop intro. So it's going to be a free 3 hour introductory workshop to the actual full 1 day workshop. So again, it's free. Just go on Eventbrite if you can, and sign up for it with your email address and everything. It'll help me organize and manage the list of attendees, anyone who's coming and all that kind of stuff, that our expectations, so we can set up enough chairs, food, the whole 9 yards. So yeah, there's a free 3 hour on July 6th, next Saturday, and then that is a prelude to the actual workshop, which is July 20th.
Awesome.
And that's $250 per person, $350 for couples. And that's honestly a starting price. We're actually going to be raising the price very soon, so we're looking to get as many people to take advantage of the cheap.
Let's pack the room.
Yeah, let's pack the room. Outside of that, guys, I have my laugh as a ringtone on iTunes Store. So I just, every episode I want to plug that. If you guys have an iPhone, you can go to the iTunes Store and you can look up Rico's Laugh, and it's $1.29, super cheap, but it's usually brings joy to people, makes people laugh, especially if you set it as an alarm in the morning to wake up to. I wake up to, I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, if you guys could support me and download that ringtone, I think that would be awesome. I'm trying to get 10,000 downloads. Let's see what we can do,
We could do it.
Awesome. And then last but not least, Visionary Living, the podcast, which is what you're listening to right now. It is on all forms or platforms, from SoundCloud to iHeartRadio, Stitcher, iTunes Podcast, YouTube, you name it, it's there. Just search for it. You could even look at your Alexa speaker system and say, hey, Alexa, play Visionary Living podcast, and she'll start to play it. So
don't you love technology?
Not really. It's kind of gross. Creepy.
Me too, but it's growing on me.
It's growing on me. It's growing. So outside of that, are there any last words that you'd like to say for our viewers?
Honestly, my last words are just come from a place of love. Love yourself, love each other, inspire people to do that. That's my goal in life. I guess at one point it stopped being about money and it really started being about love. And that is my goal.
And
I
then you
hope
changed
that
your last name to Love.
Yep, it's true. It's true.
That's awesome. So yeah, guys, come from a place of vision, live your lives with power, using your vision, create and manifest your life to the way that you see it in your head. It is possible, I promise you. And as you continue to listen to these episodes, I hope to inspire you with other people who have done the same, so that you know that it is indeed possible. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I am humbled only all the time by your viewership, by your time and your attention. And join us next Monday for a very interesting episode with my friend Andrew Kahn, who will be my guest for next week. So love you all again. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Awesome. Bye.